Hello, everyone. Welcome to our channel. Today we have here with us Celia. Her full name is Celia Sandhya Daniels. Celia is an entrepreneur. She's a motivational speaker, DNI champion, blogger. She's also a composer, musician, photographer, and a filmmaker. So she does a host of things. She is currently residing in Southern California with her family. She is an Asian Indian who identifies as gender fluid and expresses as a non-op trans woman of color. In terms of her professional background, she is a management consultant with over 20 years of experience. And she has demonstrated success in operating, growing, and spearheading strategic media, healthcare, and life sciences engagement for the Fortune 100 companies across the globe. I am not going to talk a lot about her because since we have her here, we'd love to hear from her mouth as to all of her journey that has been and the work that she's been doing. She's doing some fantastic work, so I'm sure all of you are going to enjoy listening to all of her achievements as well. She prefers to be referred to as she, and the pronoun that she prefers is her. And lastly, I think one of the things which is not mentioned in her profile, and it has been my personal experience, is when I reached out to her for the first time, where I was wondering whether she would even reply. She actually responded promptly, and not just responded, she also gave her time to engage with me and clarify so many of my doubts. And today again, when I reached out to her, she was absolutely ready to be here with us. So I really want to thank you, Celia, for doing this for us. And I think we in India would especially benefit from speaking with you, because you are someone who has seen the Indian culture as well. You've been here for half your life, and you've been in US, so you've seen the culture here and you've seen it there, and you are still working with the Indian community and the community there. So I think you'll be able to provide us with a lot of tips, as well as what kind of cultural similarities or perhaps even the differences that we have. So I think without further ado, I would want to hand it over to you now. Probably one of the first things that we can start off with is by you telling us how your journey has been, what your childhood was like, and how you really transformed into the adulthood that you did.
Thank you so much, Shivangi, because I am so grateful for this segment. It's so important for us to hear our stories. We all have stories. My story is very different. I never thought I would make it this far, having born in Chennai, and with the struggles that I had as a child, I never thought that I would make it this far. And it's been a privilege, and I'm so happy that my life has turned out great. By God's grace, things have happened well. And I wanted to start by saying that I was born in India. I was born in southern India, in Chennai. And when I was 4 years old, I knew I was different. My gender was not doing justice to my anatomy. It was different. My mom looked at the social constructs of the colonial British government, and she said, I don't want my son to turn out as a hijra. I was so much interested in wearing my mom's saris, like this. I used to cover my head, and I was just so happy playing. And my mom was always, she loved the way I was a child and I was expressing my femininity. That was kind of okay in the Indian culture when you're growing up. So she took pictures of me, and it was fun. When I was 7 years old, my mom told me that, hey, you cannot wear those clothes again because that's not what you are. So I learned to suppress my femininity, and I just started surviving. So when my friends used to have this question in school, they will ask you, do you want to be an astronaut? What do you want to be? What's your ambition when you grow up? Heart of hearts, I'll say, yeah, I want to be an engineer. I want to be a computer scientist. But deep inside, I really wanted to survive. I really wanted to survive because I didn't know that if I come out, I would be able to even live my life, because the Indian community was so hostile at the time. They were not familiar with the trans community. And I was confused too, because I was not interested in men. I was interested in women. In fact, I wanted to be a woman. So that's the fun part. And I loved the femininity and the richness that Indian culture brought in, which I don't even see in this country. But that's why I love wearing sari, because it kind of shows who I am. The fabric of my ethnicity, it comes out when I really do that. And also, I like to keep the Indian culture because that's so important for me, even living in this country for more than a couple of decades now. So when I was growing up, one thing that I knew was, I knew it was so different, but as a child, I couldn't tell my parents. My mom and dad were Christian converts, so we lived in a very conservative community, and Bible always said, that if you do sin, you're going to hell. So I lived with that white noise in my head, and I thought, oh, if I'm going to live like this, probably I'm going to die anyway. I'm a sinner, so there's no point in living. So I started self-harming myself. I asked this question as to why things are happening to me. Why am I different? What is different about me? So every morning I would wake up and I would say, I want to be. I don't want anyone to know that I'm a feminine person, so I'm going to be as macho as possible. That was my goal. I would play hockey, I would play cricket, I would even play baseball, volleyball, everything that I could, kabaddi and all those games those days. And I was acting so macho, and I had girlfriends, and I was pretending to be okay. But deep inside, I was hurting. And I was going through a lot of trauma, because as a child, you shouldn't be going through such traumas, which people don't talk about in India. And when you talk about your problems and weaknesses, it becomes a difficult thing. That's how my childhood was. I tried committing suicide twice. So it was really hard for me because I didn't know what was going on with my life. And I wanted to die, but I was afraid to live, and I was also afraid to die. It was very difficult for me at the time. And I remember I was also abused by my uncle when I was in my 4th grade. The reason I went through all these traumas is I thought maybe I'm born differently. They're looking at me as a woman. And 2 years after that, my cousin also abused me. And I was, at the point, I didn't know how to react to it. So I just blamed everything on myself. I said, this is me. It's not them. They are okay people. Something is wrong with me. I took the blame for all that they did to me. And I took so much of trauma as a child, but I never shared anything to my parents. It was really difficult for me to be growing up in the Indian community with so much of trauma, and also going through all this abuse and everything. And I thought with the whole thing, I really wanted to come out in India. In 9th grade, I remember wearing a dress, wearing a long skirt and a top, and I was going out. There were some watchmen who stopped me, and they asked me that, hey, what are you doing here? Come here. And I went to them. And I told them, I'm just walking here. And they looked at me and they said, that's hijra. They said it in Tamil, that's umbodu. Umbodu means it's one of the most derogatory language you can use for a trans person in India. Like something like incomplete or a feminine man. And they kept on pointing fingers, and that person was drunk. He called a whole lot of people. So almost like 9 of them started standing around me and started pointing fingers and said, where's your father? What are you doing like this? And I was so scared. At the time, this is so important. I thought, I don't want my family to take the shame. I will take any amount of shame. If you're going to beat me or do anything to me, I will take it. But I don't want my family to go through it. And that is what was running in my head as a 9th grade child. I mean, this is not how the Indian community, or, that is more the ostracizing concept that happens for the trans community. When they see you, they think that you don't belong here. You don't need to, your existence is such a demeaning threat to our own society. That's the way they look at you. And I was standing there, and of course I knew Hindi. So I spoke in a North Indian accent and I made up some story, and I walked away from that situation. And it was really hard for me because, I ran away. I said, I'm going to the market. Can you tell me the direction to the market? And I just ran away. As the crowd was kind of gathering around me, I was so scared. But that was the last time I came out in India. And I went through a lot. I did my master's in computer science. I focused my energy on studying. I was good in music, so I did really well in music. I played all kinds of rock stuff in college. I was a great vocalist. I've got some awards. I have, in fact, performed in front of Rajiv Gandhi also, which is way back, as a university team, we performed. So we have done a lot. I mean, I have done a lot as an vocalist and as a guitarist. I have done so much in my life. And that was all the things that I had to, use to suppress my inner trauma that I was going through every time. I had fun, so much fun. But when I come back to my room, I was like, I want to be this girl. I am struggling inside and nobody should see that. And that's the way I grew up in my childhood days. But I can talk a little bit more based on your questions, or else I can keep
Yes,
going on and
I
on.
do have, in fact, a couple of questions. So
Yeah.
you mentioned that when you were four, you figured that there was something different about you, and a lot of people that I also speak with, they say that I used to think that I'm the only person who is like this, or probably God has done something to me, specifically. And then later on, I did come across this information that there are more people who are probably like me, or even if they're not like me, but they do also feel that there is something different. So, what was roughly, the age when you thought that you were not alone? And also, you mentioned that, you knew that you were interested in women. So, when did you discover your gender identity and sexuality, and were you able to decipher between the two, early on in your life?
I think that is a very good question because I didn't know that if I was attracted to someone, then I wouldn't have a gender identity issue. Because sexual orientation is basically a person who is more, whom they're attracted to. But gender identity is who you are. And that's what I was going through. So I was thinking in my mind that I'm attracted to women, but why do I want to be a woman? And that's why I didn't know how to distinguish between the sexual orientation and a gender identity part. And because it was a very old, I mean, it's an old culture, right? We live in a culture which is like 4,000 years old. So much of gender fluidity in India, but everything was gone and dissolved. That a person has both male and female identities in them. That's how I thought. There is a little bit, someone says, I'm a tomboy today, or someone says, oh, you're just very feminine, you're more like a motherly love. So they use it in a very different way, but that's why I thought this is just a fetish at the time. And I didn't know that this would go away. And I thought after a while it might go, and when I grow, probably in my puberty, it will go away. But it did not go away. I mean, I even struggled with it till my marriage. Only after my marriage, I knew that, wow, now this is a problem. Till then, I didn't know that this is actually a problem because I thought it'll go away. And even my wife told me, hey, it's fetish, it'll go away. But I was struggling for a very long time. And only after my marriage, I knew that this is really a problem. Until then, I thought, I'm just going to fight it out. The funny thing is, I did not want to be a girl because growing up in India, being a man was a privilege at the time. And I was a boy, and I was so privileged to be a boy that I was thinking, why do I want to be a girl? But at the same time, I was so pulled and drawn towards my femininity that I could not resist it. It's not something like, you like ice cream or you're drawn to it. It's something that is in you, the fabric of your being. And so it took a long time for me to realize that, wow, I do have a problem. So I would say I had this dream of being a boy. And then I lived in denial after that. It was more of, I was hiding it, and then I was more in denial that I didn't want to be like this. So that was my struggle, actually.
And how was school like? I mean, in school, did you have any friends you would confide in? And if at all, yes, then, what would their reactions be like? Did it seem inclusive?
No, I think I studied in Kendra Vidyalaya. So we had a variety of people from different parts of India living there. So I learned different languages, and so that was kind of the best intersectionality I had. So the school culture wasn't very, I wouldn't say that any school was open to a person who comes out as trans. And even if you came out, you were made fun of. and people would know that you are different. They would just know that you're different, and they would make fun of you. And I was always trying my best to fight the fact that people should not know anything about me, that I'm feminine or a sissy boy. That was more of those. So I was actually in a class where I had my own set of friends, and I had lots of friends who were girls, and I interacted with them to keep my mind. And I was really attracted to women at the time, that I was always trying to embody, some of the aspects of them, like their hairstyle, the way they used to put mascara and all that. I wanted to do that. And I did not live in an inclusive environment in India. Growing up in that kind of a community, it was really hard, because I don't think India was even ready for a person who's not with the Hijra community to come out and say, yeah, I identify as a Hijra person, or I identify as a transgender person in India. I remember when I was in Boy Scouts, I was going to a scout camp. In the train in Hyderabad, I remember there was people making fun of two Hijra girls who got into the train, and they were almost like yelling at them and screaming at them. And I was standing there and looking at them, thinking that I am like you. I am exactly like you, but I don't want to be you, because I know I identify with you, but I don't want your life, because it's such a difficult life. I never want that shame, because that is the part which was really hard for me. So I was hiding myself so much that I didn't want to undergo any shame in my life, because after my episode in my 9th grade, I did not want anyone to know about me, or anything to do with it. So I hid as much as possible. But now I know that sometimes when you hide these kind of traumas, it can cause a lot of mental stress. But I knew it late in my life. Yeah, I never grew in an inclusive environment in school, as you mentioned.